Hello, I've been in business for 15 years, I've built and sold 5 of them, and in this video I'm going to let you know the very worst people that I've ever had to work with in business. Roll the thing. Throughout my business career, I've come across some very interesting people. The vast majority of them have been great, either as a client or a supplier, or someone who has just coached and helped and mentored me along the way. However, you don't get to be in business for 15 years across 5 different businesses without encountering a few a-holes along the way. Now, this video is really not about naming and shaming anyone. I would never do that. And any name that I'm going to use a fake name for anyone that I mention. This video is really about a couple of things. It's about, sharing my story to anyone who watches videos on my channel, and it's also about, I think, trying to help people learn from my mistakes. So kicking things off then with number 10 on my list. Now this guy is a DJ, we'll call him Chris. Now this was from my first business, which was called, there were 2 brands, one was called Kill the DJ, the other one's called Love the DJ. It started off as a small DJ business, then it became a DJ agency, then it expanded into events. And I hired Chris to go into a gig in London. This particular client, it was a corporate client. They wanted a big show. They wanted someone with a big system, lights, everything. It was a really big package as well. I think the package was over about 1,500 quid. So there was quite a lot of money in it, not only for the DJ, but also for myself taking a cut as an agent. And this guy, he was based in Kent. He wasn't that used to going into London. And I had a word with the venue before he arrived. And they said, look, we'll get people on the ground, we'll help him unload, and then we'll help him find a parking spot. Great, what could possibly go wrong? So this guy, he arrives in his van, and he can't see a place where he can park. So what he does is that he circles the venue, according to him, about 6 times, and then he gets really frustrated and leaves without calling the client. I gave him the contacts without calling myself. He just leaves, and then the next thing that I really know about it, or next thing that I hear about it, is a few hours later, and the client calls me and says, What's going on? Where's the DJ? The party's just started. Where is he? I give the guy a call, and he basically explains that he circled the venue, he got frustrated, he couldn't find a spot, he gave up and came home. And then the cherry on the top was, he said to me, you aren't going to pay me, right? You're still going to pay me. Because I did technically go to the venue. I just didn't unload. And really, it's your client's fault. It's your client's fault because they didn't wave a flag at me. They didn't, really make an effort to find my van as I was circling around the venue. Did you call the client? I asked. No, of course I didn't. Why would I call the client? They should make it more obvious to me. So that was it. And so this guy, I never worked with him again. He obviously didn't get any flipping money from it. And that was that. And I lost a really big corporate client because of that. I'm starting off quite mild here, guys. It will escalate as we go through. But moving on now to number 9. This is also in my DJ business. And this is a DJ who... he was having a bad day. He was having a very bad day. I think something was going on in his personal life. And he was really abusive to a client at a guest at it was a corporate DJ gig that he was playing at. And I had 2 sides of the story, very different sides of the story. The DJ basically said, look, this guest was really rude to me. I can't believe it. She requested a song. She was really pushy and she was getting up in my face, and it was horrible. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, what to do with myself. So I told her to go away. But I was quite kind. And I was quite polite. I was like, okay, fair enough. Yeah, I get how that might put you in a stressful situation. I went to the client, and the client got her guest to email her a little report, basically saying that completely didn't happen. And the DJ was like shouting, he was really abusive, he swore at her. So I had 2 really conflicting sides of the story. So I said to my client, is there anyone who can collaborate the guest story? So she went off, and sure enough, I got lots of emails coming through with lots of people who attended, collaborating her story. I told the DJ about this, and he just flew off the handle. He was like, oh, you can't believe them, you can't trust them, it was a really rough, rowdy crowd, they're just getting behind her, infamy, they all got it, infamy. And he really played the victim card, and he played it so strongly, I actually started to think, well, hang on a second, is there something in what he's saying? Maybe they are ganging up on him. I don't know, I wasn't there. And then I looked at the venue, and then I looked at the email addresses of all the people who were collaborating her guest's story, and the venue was the Royal Courts of Justice, and the majority of her guests were judges, like district judges, whose job it is to decide between right and wrong within the confines of the law. So the DJ really had absolutely no leg to stand on. He was sacked very quick. I gave him a little bit of money for travel, and then that was it. I never worked with him again. I'm moving on to number 8, which was a photography agency, and I had basically a bunch of photographers on my books that I would outsource to different events, 1 or 2 corporate events, but mainly weddings. And I hired this guy who he seemed great. He had a great portfolio, we had a great conversation beforehand, and there was a contract in place. Now, one of the terms within that contract was that you must definitely not pass this work on to anyone else. You must do it personally. I went through photographers' portfolios and vetted people before they joined my books for a good reason. I wanted good people working for my business. I wanted to really turn it into something. So we exchanged contracts. Everything seemed great. Cut long story short, he put someone into the wedding who, I don't know, maybe he met down the pub, and the photos, oh my god, they were the worst wedding photos I'd ever seen. The wrong f-stop, the wrong exposure, half of them were out of focus. He didn't get the main shots. He didn't get shots of the couple kissing after they've exchanged vows. He didn't get photos of the rings. He got quite a few of a dog that he saw. Some lovely photos of a random dog. I don't even think the couple had a dog. That was like a stray that wandered into the wedding venue at some point. And obviously I had to refund the client. And yeah, sure enough, again, as with the DJ from before, this guy, well, not actually the guy who did the photography, but the guy who outsourced this photographer, he gives me a call a few days later, and he's like, yep, so I just checked my account, haven't been paid, what's going on? Obviously had to refund the client in full, and obviously not pay this scabby photographer. Now, he was a very rare exception in the mix. I was really, I think, very lucky to work with a great team of photographers throughout the time that I ran that business. But yeah, he tried putting a fast one, and it didn't work. It didn't work. I blacklisted him and never worked with him again. Moving on to number 7. Now, number 7 holds a special place in my heart. And it was a wedding where I was a Toastmaster. If you don't know what a Toastmaster is, you wear a poncy red jacket, you get paid way too much money to say a few lines, and you tell people generally where food is and toilets are, and that's it. On this particular day, it was boiling hot. We were in the middle of a heat wave. There weren't many shaded areas for the guests. So understandably, a lot of the guests, and it was a big wedding, by the way, there was about 120 guests, they were all getting fairly desperate to go into a marquee where they were going to have dinner, chill out, there was aircon, have drinks, and all the rest of it. Now, the couple had organised a few different acts that I had to manage as well. There were drummers who were going to lead the couple into this giant marquee, doing some lovely drumming. There was a string quartet, and once the drummers had stopped and the couple had sat down in their seats, the plan was the string quartet were going to play throughout dinner, and the caterers had all the food ready to go. All the starters were ready, and they were in the process of making the main meal. Now, we are about 10 minutes away from me opening the doors of this marquee and letting everyone in and chill out. And I look for the couple. I can't find them. I think, okay, they're probably going to turn up quite soon. Let's give it another 5 minutes. Another 5 minutes go by, still no sign of the couple. We get to the opening time of the marquee. I go to the venue. Have you seen the couple? Oh, we think they're in their room getting changed. Am I just holding off things another 10, 15 minutes? Understandable, that happens at weddings. 15 minutes go by. 1 or 2 guests start getting aggy with me. saying, oh, hang on a second, we're sweltering here. We got kids. They're melting. They're giving us a hard time. Can we get into that marquee bit early? I have a word with the venue. No. The bride and groom, they have given us strict orders. No one could go in until they are ready. Okay. It's a bit risky, isn't it? It's a bit risky. Fair enough. We'll play it that way. Half an hour goes by where I'm starting to get a bit panicked because things are going to overrun. Things are going to carry over. And by this point, the guests, oh, I don't have one or two. I got a queue of people. Because I got a Ponzi red jacket on, people are looking at me thinking, well, hang on a second. It's his job to keep things organised on time. It's his fault. So I get many complaints at this stage coming through, left, right and centre. Different people all asking the same questions. It's getting really frustrating. So I wander off to try and find the bride and groom. They're in the bridal suite. The groom is chilling out, watching TV, watching a bit of Man vs. Food. The bride is having her hair done. Behind her is a very panicked hairdresser who is redoing her hair. Now the bride and groom here, they are utterly chilled out. They're having the time of their lives. They're enjoying the peace and quiet. I explain the situation to them. I say, look, your guests are getting really agitated. Can I let them in the marquee early and then bring you guys down when you're ready? The bride then gives me this look as to say, what the hell are you talking about? And she explains, look, it's our wedding. It's our day. They wait for us. We pay the money. So they do what we say. Okay, right, fair enough. So I go back down into the chaos, into the madness. And by this point, oh, the guests, they're after blood. We're about 45 minutes over. Everyone is just like melting in the heat. But I literally don't know what to do myself. I just, almost every person at the wedding is in this kind of huddle around me, a huddled mass, just complaining, and then it escalates to insults. I'm like, right, not having any of this. I grab some canapes from a waiter. I go up to the bridal suite. I just kick back. I chill out with the groom, watching Man vs. Food. What really did it for me was after the wedding, when the bride and groom lodged the complaint. And their complaint was something like, oh, we had so many guests who were agitated, so many guests who didn't have a good time. Well, no shit, Sherlock, after delaying things for 90 minutes just because you wanted a certain type of Mr. Whippy hairstyle, on one of the hottest days of the year, making people just wait and swelter in the heat without a lot of food or drink. Do you think they're going to come back and say, yeah, that was one of the best flipping weddings we ever went to? And moving on to number 6, who is a programmer for one of my newest businesses that deals with customizable football comics. For the purpose of this video, we'll call him Bob. Now, I could put my hand up here and I say I went into this business very naively. I didn't really fully do the research as to what was needed for the software to actually create a customizable football comic, because I really wanted to be very hands-off and I wanted the website to do the majority of the work. Now, I went from programmer to programmer. There was lots of kind of quotes I got through where someone thought they could do it and then they just totally couldn't. And then I eventually found this guy, Bob, who said he would be able to do it. And what he did was that he really kind of took the time to understand fully what it was that I wanted done. He made it way more clear than it even was for myself. And he gave me a price. It was a bit on the higher side compared to everyone else, but by this point, I learned that I couldn't do this kind of job on the cheap. I was quite happy to invest, and we started working together. And as with a lot of relationships, working relationships that go sour in terms of client-supplier relationships, I think there is a similar pattern, and I think it started off great. It started off really good. He was making great progress. I think within about 2 weeks, it looked like he nearly nailed the whole thing. And within about, I think, 3 to 4 weeks, we were in a testing phase. And that's when the problem started. The guy just went out of communication. And whereas before, he was like very attentive. He was like straight on any messages that I sent. It got to the point where I'd send a message and I wouldn't get a reply for a day. And then that extended to 2 days. And then that extended to 3, 4 days. And over the period of a few months, I had several conversations with him, telling him, look, your level of communication is really not working for me. Can we really kind of shift something here? And there was like a recommitment after recommitment that, yeah, he'll definitely kind of, be on the ball next time. And I think normally I would jump ship. Normally, if there were a lot of communication problems with a supplier, I jump ship at a fairly early stage, sacking him and getting someone else. But because I had such a nightmare actually finding someone to do this job for me originally, I oddly had it in my head that, this might be just one of the only programmers I'm ever going to find who can actually do what I want to do. So I stuck by him, and that was a massive mistake on my part. With Bob out of the way, let's move on to number 5. Now, for a number of years, I interviewed celebrities because, I don't know, I thought it would kind of lead on to something exciting, which it never did. Now, out of all the interviews that I did, I worked with a number of different cameramen. Now, I didn't have a big budget to work with professionals all of the time. And every now and then I worked with students, or I worked with older people who were working in the corporate sector that wanted to shift over to the entertainment world. The one that stands out from this time, I covered a music festival. I think it was the Download Festival in, I think it was 2012. And after it, an editor just completely point blank refused to give me the footage for who knows what kind of reason. Who knows what was going on with him. It just, the thing with people on this list, a lot of their actions just come out of the blue, It's not like I get a warning. It's not like I have like a huge argument with someone and then there's something that happens which is kind of predictable. It's just stuff that's out of the blue, and that's what I hate the most. That's what rubs me up the wrong way the most. And he just didn't want to give me the footage, and I had to get my lawyer involved and threaten legal action. And eventually, after about a month, I got the footage I was after. Complete and utter A-class a-hole. I'm moving on to number 4. For the purpose of this video, we'll call him Stan. Now, Stan was a good friend of mine, and around about this time, I was about 2 years into my business career. Now, Stan had trained to be a business mentor, and I felt like I could really do with a bit of a boost inside of my business. Now, business was going quite well. The price tag on the course that he was offering, the mentorship, was about $5,000. Now, I thought that was quite pricey, but I trusted this guy. I considered him to be a friend, and I kind of thought, well, if I'm a friend of his and he's charging me this much money, it must be good. It must be good. So I signed up, and the payment was to be paid in installments. The first payment was, I think it was about 900 quid. It covered about a month. Now, when I say it covered a month, it didn't really include a lot. I think there were 1 or 2 conference calls. There was like a 15-minute one-to-one session. And he was meant to be, I think, on call as well for any additional coaching that I requested. And I put a few calls in, and he just wasn't around. And I came up to the end of the month, and I just realized, you know what? I just got 0 value from this. This is utter rubbish. And why should I continue? I really don't want to continue. And I think one of the big problems was that this guy, he became a business mentor through a franchise. So there was a very kind of set way that he had to do things. There was a very set structure that he had to follow. And I don't think it was followed very well, and I don't think he gave enough time for the amount of money that he was charging, because it was such a high price tag with such little time with him, and it wasn't like the advice was completely groundbreaking, It was just really kind of standard out of the box stuff. So I paid him this £900, and I said, look, I'm done. I'm done. I don't want to continue. I don't want to see this through to the end. And he came back and he went, oh, hang on a second, mate. You signed a contract, did you? You signed a contract. I want the rest of my money. And I said, well, dang, you haven't given me any more training other than what I've already paid for. And again, this escalated to a legal issue. I checked with my lawyer, and I was in the right with being able to withhold any additional funds because it was for services that I hadn't received yet. What made it particularly bad was that before this, I considered the guy to be a friend, and I feel like he abused that relationship for financial profit, which sucks. It sucks ass. It's one thing if a complete stranger does that, but if someone who you consider to be a bit of a mate does that, it's just a whole different level, isn't it? It's horrible. I'm moving on to number 3. Now, I've combined 2 different people here. under a similar situation. And it's 2 of the 5 people that I sold my businesses to. Now, the situation is basically where they just obliterated my business that I'd spent years building up prior to the point of sale. The first person just abandoned the business altogether because she had some personal issues that were happening in her life. It was at a really busy time in the business as well. There were lots of bookings that had to be managed, lots of different suppliers that had to be paid. And within a few weeks after the sale, I had people calling me, like suppliers and clients, say, what's going on? What's going on, mate? Where's my money? Where's this? Where's that? Why isn't this person turned up for that? And I just had to say, look, I'm really sorry. I don't run the business anymore. I have nothing to do with it. You have to go back to the person. And they just couldn't get in touch with the person in question. That business was run into the ground at lightning quick speed. And I don't know if you've ever spent years building something and then passed it on to someone, but to see someone just completely destroy it super quick, it's heartbreaking. It was really horrible to watch. It's not about that person doing something to me. It's about that person doing something to something that I created and spent years building. Moving across to the other business, it had a website, which was really key to the success of the business. And I had spent years refining every single little aspect of this website. The position of every image, every single word on every single page, it all had a intention. And it worked. Clients came through the door and converted really quickly, or potential clients converted really quickly as a result of that website. And what was one of the first things that this other buyer did with the website? He had a tech team, and he got his tech team to completely revamp the website. And the revamp, it made it more basic, which is fine, I guess. But like loads of things were out of ratio. The text had changed every single element that I kind of poured hours into on that website was just gone. The website wasn't redone by a branding consultant. No. It was redone by a tech guy for a increase on the page load time. Because of course that's way more important, isn't it, than having a really fantastic strong brand and image and images and text that really kind of uphold and strengthen the brand. Of course that's way more important. So as a result, the conversions went straight down. From what I've heard, I think the owner tried pouring a lot of money into the business, into the website. I think he was misinformed by the team around him, and I don't think that business exists anymore. I should check. I think it was pretty much run into the ground. Not so much actually by the person who brought it, but really by that person's team who works under him, who I think just completely misadvised him. Moving on to number 2. Can I have a drum roll for this one, please? It is me. Because at the end of the day, most mistakes within a business are made not by the employees, not by the supplier, not by the clients. They are made by the person running the business. And I mean, there are many mistakes I can kind of highlight as to things that I've done. I think the most silliest mistakes that I've done, probably in my event hosting business, I told a very inappropriate joke at a charity event for Help for Heroes. It went down like a lead balloon, and the client actually lost all confidence in me following this horrible joke that no one laughed at. Now, there are many more examples of things I could give in ways that I've done things just completely wrong and incorrect in my businesses. But I really want to move on to the numero uno, the biggest a-hole that I've ever worked with in my 16 years of running businesses. Can I have a massive fanfare and drum roll, please? It is the writer. For the purpose of this video, we will call him Larry. Yep, so I came across Larry in around about 2015, and this is during the time when I was writing a script for a feature film. And what happened was that I had written a draft for a feature film. I took it to someone at BAFTA who said, yeah, it's actually really good. You just need to tweak 1 or 2 bits here and there, and then, yeah, I think it's ready to go. Now, by that time, I had spent a lot of my time, a lot of months working on this script, and I was like, oh, Jesus, I just wanted to be finished. I was really impatient, and I went, oh, do you know what would really help is if I got a co-writer on board. That would be such a big help, wouldn't it? That would be such a big help. So I go along to 1 or 2 networking events local to me in Kent, and I come across this writer, Larry, who has 1 or 2 quite minor credits to his name. And I take his number, we basically meet up, and he seems like a decent bloke, and I think, yeah, why not? Why not give this a crack with Larry, after really not reading much of his material at all? So we start working together. He's got 1 or 2, actually, at the beginning, he's got 1 or 2 quite cool ideas, and I incorporate them into the script. And we work well together for about 3 weeks. And then he goes off the boil. He's obviously got other projects that he's working on. And from that point onwards, it is just me doing the vast majority of the work and then just chasing him. Now, this goes on for the best part of probably about 9 months to maybe pushes about a year. At the end of that time, we finally have a finished script. I say we, I've done about 90% of this work. He's done about 10% at a push. I take it, by this point, I've got a producer attached to the project. I've got a director. So it all looks like it's about to kind of take off. It's about to go. And the producer is about to approach a few investors for some money, some investment. And he turns around to me and goes, look, I just needed to ask this. I'm sure it's not the case, but do you have any contracts that I don't know about? Any at all? Because it's really important at this stage that I know if this script has any other contracts attached to it. And I say, well, yeah, I entered one with the co-writer, but it's, yeah, quite a basic one. I think it's fairly standard. Yeah, if it doesn't work, I'm sure he'd be willing to change. The producer, he looked through this contract and he went, oh, mate, this is terrible. This script demands back-end points. It demands profits from, like, DVD sales and theatrical sales, all this kind of stuff. And as, like, writers who are just starting out, you would never get it. This is the kind of stuff that directors and writers like Quentin Tarantino can demand. But with you guys that have, like, next to no credits to your name, not in a million years. And he said, look, just go back to the co-writer, tell him the situation, tell him how close we are to investment, and I'm sure he'll renegotiate. And I thought, yeah, this guy's quite reasonable. I'm sure he will. Did he? Like, heck he did. He declined, he point blank declined to come to negotiating table. He was under some kind of crazy idea that we should get, you know, Hollywood type money for the first feature that we would produce. As a result, it really did drive not only the project into the ground, but my enthusiasm just plummeted. And it got to the stage where I said, you know what, I would prefer for this project not to go ahead, so that I wouldn't actually have to be tied to this guy any longer, so I wouldn't have to work with him or see him again. Now, a few months went by. I think the best part actually of a year went by from the point that he refused to come to the negotiating table, and he did eventually renegotiate into a fairly standard contract, which I think would have actually passed. But again, yeah, I looked at the whole situation and I just said to myself, do you know what? I don't want it. I don't want it. I'd rather rewrite the whole script and produce it myself and just write him out of the project. And that's exactly what I did. I'm now looking ahead to dates in 2022 when I could potentially get that film produced without Larry being attached whatsoever. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I think this is one of the longest YouTube videos I've ever made, so I really do appreciate you making it to the end. Please do smash that like button, leave me a comment below. I'd love to know any nightmare stories that you have of working with anyone in business. Until next time, take care of yourself, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.